تغليق أبواب جهنم على البلد.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Future MP Bahia Al-Hariri condemns the Tripoli twin attacks and calls for a national day on September the 1st. Syria says it will give weapons inspectors full access to purported chemical weapons attack sites. And French medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières says they are certain a neurotoxic agent has been used in Syria after an alleged chemical attack in a suburb of Damascus. The army is stepping up its security measures in Tripoli in light of Friday's twin bombings in the northern city. The national news agency says the army has set up checkpoints at the entrances of the city and within its neighborhoods in main squares. Vehicles are being inspected as well as drivers' identification papers. Meanwhile, the Higher Relief Council has begun inspecting the houses damaged by the Taqwa mosque blast. Ojero Telecommunication Company is checking the telephone lines which were damaged in the bombing near Al-Salam Mosque. Activists on the ground are still cleaning the scenes of the blast and removing the rubble. State Commissioner to the Military Court Judge Sa'ir is calling on relatives of the victims to undergo DNA tests in order to determine the fate of their loved ones. Future MP Bahia Al-Hariri calls for a national day on September the 1st and says she will assist in the reconstruction of Tripoli neighborhoods damaged by the car bombs. Hariri has paid a visit to the northern city, including the blast sites, which she condemned the attacks, the links of the twin blasts to one which took place in the Ruwais area in Beirut's southern suburbs on August 16th. She says those committing such crimes are seeking to target the whole of Lebanon. They are targeting the country's diversity, she says, before declaring it is time that the Lebanese people live in peace and security. The Future movement has also condemned the bombings, urging security forces to deal firmly with those seeking to harm Lebanon's security. The movement is demanding that security measures be bolstered at places of worship and that security forces increase their presence in the northern city. Interior Minister Marwan Sharbel is stressing that the security forces are doing their utmost in order to thwart attempts to create strife in Lebanon. Sharbel says he believes the same perpetrators are behind the Ruwais and Tripoli bombings. He also voiced his fears that more bombings will take place in the country, saying that some difficulties are preventing authorities from imposing security throughout the country. He added that investigations are ongoing to determine the assailants and arrest them. He says strife is being devised for the whole of Lebanon and not just the region. Just in, Syria says it will give weapons inspectors full access to purported chemical weapons attack sites. We'll give you more information soon. 400 tons of arms have been sent into Syria from Turkey to boost insurgent capabilities against Syrian government forces. This is according to opposition sources who say the Gulf-financed shipment is one of the single biggest to reach rebel brigades since the uprising against President Bashar al-Assad turned violent 2 years ago. On another note, Al-Qaeda-linked Syrian jihadist group Al-Nusra Front is vowing revenge strikes against villages from President Bashar al-Assad's community over claims his forces used chemical weapons. In an audio message posted on the internet and on his Twitter account, Al-Nusra Front chief Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani says, and I quote, "The Alawite villages will pay the price for each chemical rocket that struck our people in Damascus." Assad hails from the Alawite community, an offshoot of Shiite Islam, unlike most Sunni rebel groups fighting to topple him, including Al-Nusra Front, whose chief in March pled allegiance to Al-Qaeda. French President François Hollande says evidence indicates Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime has carried out chemical weapons attacks on its own people last week. Hollande says there is a body of evidence indicating that the August 21st attack was chemical in nature and that everything leads to the belief that the Syrian regime is responsible for this unspeakable act. In a statement released by his office, the French president is calling on the UN weapons inspectors to be given immediate, unrestricted access to the suspected sites. In parallel, French medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières says they are certain a neurotoxic agent has been used in Syria after an alleged chemical attack in a suburb of Damascus. They say 3 hospitals near the Syrian capital reported 355 deaths after the attack last Wednesday out of around 3,600 admissions with nerve gas-type symptoms. The Syrian opposition has accused government forces of gassing hundreds of people by firing rockets that released deadly fumes into rebel-held Damascus suburbs, killing men, women, and children as they slept. Opposition estimates for the death toll ranges from 500 to well over double that number, but which UN observers unable to visit the site. There has still been no independent verification.
Important number of patients, very important number of patients. They came within 3 hours with neurotoxic symptoms, and this is not normal. We are almost sure, even 100% sure, that neurotoxic agent have been used. What type of agent, we cannot confirm. Who did that? Rebels or government troops, we cannot confirm. We don't know. Our doctors were in the hospital, and suddenly influx of patients started, and they were only busy to deal with the cases. And the last thing that we want to request or to wish is that the experts, UN or other independent experts, should go to the affected zone to clarify what's happened and who did this.
The Syrian government and Iran are warning that the U.S. will face harsh consequences if it intervenes in Syria over claims of chemical attacks. This comes after U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says the Pentagon is prepared to carry out military options in Syria if U.S. President Barack Obama chooses to. Obama and his top military and national security advisors have hashed out options on Saturday for responding to the alleged use of chemical weapons in Syria amid increasing signs that the government used poison gas against civilians.
President Obama has asked the Defense Department to prepare options for all contingencies. We have done that, and again, we are prepared to exercise whatever option if he decides to employ one of those options. If you are to pursue inaction or not pursue inaction. And so all those assessments are being made. They will be driven by, as I said yesterday, and I think the President has made the case, the facts, what our intelligence assessment produces, law, legal issues, international support. A number of factors are always in play when any nation analyzes how we would deal with a big challenge.
Moving on to Egypt, former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak has appeared at his retrial on charges of complicity in the killings of protesters during the uprising that toppled him from power 2 years ago. He was escorted by medical and security personnel into an ambulance to be taken by helicopter from Mahdi Military Hospital to the Cairo Police Academy, where he faced judges again before the trial was adjourned until September 14th. Mubarak's co-defendants, his 2 sons and the former Interior Minister Habib al-Adli, also appeared at the trial amid heavy security presence. The defense team demanded the testimony of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, current defense minister and head of the armed forces, because he was the director of military intelligence during Mubarak's rule. The trial of Mohammed Badia, the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood's supreme guide, and his 2 deputies has been adjourned. Just minutes after it opened, the court adjourned the trial of the Brotherhood leaders and 32 other defendants to October the 29th, so the defendants could be brought to court. The men, who officials said did not appear in court for security reasons, are accused of inciting the murder of protesters. Today's hearing was the first in the proceedings against the senior Brotherhood leaders who were detained after the removal of President Mohamed Morsi from power by the military on July the 3rd. Still to come in our program, a blast targeting a bus carrying members of the Yemeni Air Force kills 10 soldiers. That and more after the break. Welcome back. Thousands of Tunisians crowded a square in Tunis to put pressure on the Islamist-held government to step down as it works toward crisis negotiations with the secular opposition. The protests, meant to kick off a week of rallies against the ruling Ennahda party, brought together about 10,000 protesters, according to police estimates. Anti-government protests picked up in Tunisia in late July after the second killing of a secular politician by suspected Islamist radicals this year. Over to Yemen, forensic investigators are combing the scenes of a bomb attack in the capital of Sana'a. 10 people have been killed and 26 others wounded when a bus carrying members of the country's air force to their base was attacked. Investigators say a full insight into the responsibility of the attack will only be confirmed by the team once the investigation has been concluded. Yemen has been gripped by turmoil since pro-democracy protests against former President Ali Abdullah Saleh broke out early in 2011. The country is also battling a powerful branch of al-Qaeda that U.S. officials say is the most dangerous of the global network. The UN is being dragged into a mission in Mali, West Africa, likely to involve state building as much as peacekeeping, as France looks to reduce its military footprint in the vast and poor Sahel state after defeating an Islamist rebellion. France's successful 7-month-old campaign to destroy the Islamist enclave has killed hundreds of fighters linked to al-Qaeda and scattered others far across the Sahara. But with Paris keen to wrap up Opération Serval quickly and Mali's West African neighbors unable to keep the peace there alone, the UN faces what some people see as open-ended mission with precious few resources. It is unclear how long the planned 12,600 UN peacekeeping force will take to roll out fully. It is even less clear how suited the multinational mission is to a task, which includes helping the government to re-establish itself in the north of the country and eventually handing responsibility for security to Mali's army. And now for news around the world in brief. The Colombian government says it will resume peace talks with Revolutionary Armed Force of Colombia on Monday in Havana, Cuba. The announcement comes a day after both sides suspended talks over whether a draft bill will be subject to a vote by all Colombians as the government proposed or Constituent Assembly be convened to incorporate any peace deals into the country's constitution as the FARC want. The most recent attack of FARC rebels has claimed the lives of 13 soldiers. Indian police has arrested a 5th suspect in the alleged gang rape of a female photographer in a case that has renewed outrage over safety of women in the nation. Soon after the sexual assault on Thursday, police said they were searching for 5 suspects. The alleged rape of the 23-year-old woman in the financial hub of Mumbai is the latest shocking sexual assault to make headlines in the South Asian nation. The trial of the disgraced Chinese politician Bo Xilai has been adjourned until Monday following an unscheduled 3rd day of revelations and politically charged accusations. So far, the trial has been made very public, with each side attempting to discredit the other. Before the court adjourned today, Bo, a former Communist Party Politburo member and party leader of Chongqing, also sought to discredit his former top aide as a liar and an unreliable witness. Some tens of thousands of people have gathered during a march at the Lincoln Memorial Center in Washington, D.C. to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's famous speech of "I Have a Dream." Martin Luther King's eldest son and U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder addressed the crowds in separate speeches in front of the Lincoln Memorial, where Martin Luther King made his historic speech 50 years ago. On August 28, 1963, more than 200,000 people gathered in the Capitol, holding a grand parade to demand for job opportunities and freedom for black people. Many people who participated in the 1963 parade also made it on August 24th, marking as a historic revisit. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now here's a reminder of our headlines. Future MP Bahia Al-Hariri condemns the Tripoli twin attacks and calls for a national day on September the 1st. Syria says it will give weapons inspectors full access to purported chemical weapons attack sites. And finally, the French medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières says they are certain a neurotoxic agent has been used in Syria after an alleged chemical attack in a suburb of Damascus. Those were your Sunday headlines for Future Television, live from Beirut. We'll be back again tomorrow with more updates. Until then, stay safe.
فتحنا أبواب اللهيب، أبواب جهنم على البلد.